Chapter 11. The next day after school, Mom was out checking on a beef delivery for the steakhouse, and Dad was dealing with a chicken that had gotten loose from the petting zoo when I heard a knock on the apartment door. I put down my e-reader and got up to see who was there. I'd been reading a new book called Stargirl. I picked it up for two reasons. One, it took place in the Arizona desert, and I was doing everything I could to come to terms with my new living situation. I thought reading an interesting story set here might make me view it differently. And two, it is about a girl who totally doesn't fit in with anybody. She is completely her own unique self and doesn't care what anyone thinks. I wished I could say the same thing. I heard the bark before I even opened the door, and I knew it was Connor. I asked him how school went as we walked down the stairway together. Okay, he said. A couple of kids barked at me. It's so embarrassing when they do that because I always bark back. I scowled. They wouldn't get away with that if I was around. I wasn't kidding either. This injustice would not stand. This unfairness would not be tolerated. As soon as I learned how to use nunchucks. So, how was your day? Connor asked, interrupting my little daydream. I didn't see you in the library today. I didn't want to tell him that I had eaten lunch in the bathroom stall. It was okay. I didn't go to the library because my mom doesn't want me to skip lunch anymore. It makes me cranky. I gave him a serious look. Low blood sugar. He smiled. It sucks we don't have any classes together. Maybe you can stop by the library after you eat lunch, even if it's only for a few minutes. Sure. Hey, you want to get ice cream? Before he could answer, I stomped up the steps of the stove shop. I waited for him to open the door for me. Not that I wasn't capable of opening it with my chin and shoulder. I just figured I'd let him be a gentleman. But he opened it begrudgingly and scowled. I don't think I want any. How can you say no to free ice cream? I said as I walked to the counter. Didn't you know I'm a VIP here? I get free ice cream, free coleslaw, free Ruffs, and all the free gold spray-painted rocks my heart could ever desire. I told Henry I wanted a scoop of mint chip in a bowl. While he scooped the ice cream, I asked him, Hey, what do you mean about the rodeo? When was the last time Stagecoach Pass even had a rodeo? The arena looked like it hadn't seen a rodeo in about 100 years. I looked at Henry, but he was just standing there staring at my torso. His mouth hung open. The scooper in his hand dripped ice cream to the floor. What? I asked him. What on earth happened to your arms? He seemed extremely concerned. Connor and I glanced at each other. You know I don't have arms, Henry. Well, you used to, he declared. He stared confusedly at the empty space where my arms should hang. Did you lose those in a horse riding accident? What? Yeah, he said a little more clearly. You were in a horse riding accident, weren't you? That has to be what happened. No, Henry, I said. That's not what happened. Yeah, like a horse trampled my arms off. Just trampled my arms clean off. Henry's face seemed to clear up a little, and he looked at Connor. What would you like, son? Nothing for him, I said. He's on a strict diet of air. As Henry continued scooping my ice cream, Connor whispered to me, That was so weird. I know, I whispered back. Henry placed a scoop of chocolate on the counter. Darn it, I would never get that mint chip. And Connor carried it for me outside. We sat in the rocking chairs on the porch again while I ate my ice cream, holding a spoon with my toes. Connor barked at a couple of visitors passing by. They looked up at him in surprise. When they saw me, they were extra surprised. I hate it when people look at me, he muttered. Me too. Connor turned his attention to me. You know, you're really good at that. At what? That, he said, eating the ice cream. Wow, how many people do you think get complimented for how good they are at eating ice cream? I guess it's 13 years of practice that makes me such a pro. That's a pretty good skill. Anyone could do it if they had to, I said. Connor shrugged. So what do you think that was all about in there? I have no idea. Henry is a very confused person. Connor and I heard a squeaking sound, and we both turned and looked at the soda shop window. Henry was cleaning it with his can of whipped cream. He waved at us through the smear. Connor waved back. What's wrong with him? He asked me. Mom says he has dementia. I guess it makes him confused and forgetful. He's super old, too, obviously. Do you think he knows anything about the Kavanaughs? Connor asked. He's worked here since forever, so if anyone knew anything about them, it would probably be him. He just doesn't seem to understand anything. I watched as Henry scowled at the glass with a "why won't this darn window cleaner work" sort of expression, his arms crossed. I smiled at him, and his face brightened. He disappeared, apparently not concerned about the creamy window anymore. "Why do you think the Kavanaughs are so secretive?" Connor asked. "I have no idea," I thought to myself for a moment. Maybe they're criminals hiding from the law. Or maybe they're famous, Connor said. Yeah, maybe they're famous members of a boy band, and they don't want anyone to know they also dabble in Western-themed amusement parks, because it would ruin their cool pop star image. Now the storytelling gears in my mind were turning. Or maybe they're escaped rodeo clowns, and the rodeo clown mafia is out to get them. Connor chuckled. Why would they be out to get them? Maybe they pulled a prank on the wrong person. Shot someone they shouldn't have in the face with one of those little flowers that squirt water. Or hit someone in the head with a squeaky foam hammer. And that person did not find it funny. And now that person is out for revenge. I had to admit, the theory was totally believable. Or maybe someone has already gotten their revenge on the Kavanaughs, Connor said. Maybe they're dead. He looked so serious that little goosebumps broke out on my legs. A loud beeping sound startled me. I looked down Main Street and saw a huge truck backing up to the steakhouse. Mom walked outside with a clipboard in her hands. I turned to Connor. Have you ever pulled any pranks? I asked him, hoping to lighten the mood. He shrugged. My friends and I toilet papered a teacher's house a couple years ago. He grimaced. We got in a lot of trouble. What about you? Oh, well, no big deal, but I only pulled just the most awesome prank of all time. What'd you do? Connor asked excitedly. Back in 4th grade, we knew we were going to have a substitute teacher one day because our teacher had to go to a funeral. So my best friend Emily took these arms from one of her mom's mannequins. Why did she have mannequins? She did a lot of sewing and stuff. I think she used them to model her clothes and take pictures or something. Anyway, Emily brought them to school in her backpack, and they were really big, so the hands stuck out the top. Connor laughed, like zombie arms. Yeah, it was like Night of the Living Dead. So anyway, when we got to our classroom, our covert operation went into effect. Emily and another friend, Matthew, tried to help me secretly stuff the arms up the armholes of my long-sleeve shirt, but the tops of the arms were too big to fit up the sleeves, so we had the brilliant idea to stuff them down into the sleeves through the neck hole. The arms were so much longer than my sleeves that they stuck way out of the bottom, and I totally looked like a mutant, with arms hanging down all the way to my knees. But we decided we'd come too far and had to go with it anyway. Matthew held both of the mannequin hands in his to hold the arms up. When the teacher called out for us to take our seats, I yelled out, Matthew, let go of my arms! And he pulled on the fake arms. The idea had been that he would basically pull my arms off and then hold them up over my head in triumph, howling like some wild barbarian. Cool, Connor said. Yeah, I agreed. It would have been. What our dumb 4th grade brains had failed to realize, though, was that because the arms wouldn't fit up my sleeves, they wouldn't completely fit down my sleeves either. The arm got stuck about halfway out. Matthew yanked on them and yanked on them, but they wouldn't come out of my sleeves. So what happened? Since the arms weren't coming out of the sleeves and our plan was totally falling apart, I started crying out, oh no, my arms, you're tearing my arms off. I can feel my arms being torn off at the sockets right now as we speak. Oh, the humanity, my poor arms. Everyone was laughing, but the sub just stared at us. Matthew gave up and went to his seat, so I did too. My sleeves were so stretched out that the arms dragged on the floor next to me as I walked, and I had to maneuver around them to sit down at my desk. Connor covered his mouth. Oh no, did you get in trouble? No, the sub was actually pretty nice. She didn't tattle on me to the principal or anything like that, though she did make me wear those stupid arms until lunchtime. Connor laughed. I bet you looked pretty silly. Yeah. I don't know if I'd call that the most awesome prank of all time. Yeah, it was kind of a fail. Epic fail, Connor said. I looked down at my bowl of ice cream already melting into a soup in the heat. I didn't feel like eating it anymore. After all, I'd really wanted that mint chip. You want the rest of this? I asked Connor. He shook his head. I turned my attention back to the steakhouse. You know, the gun show is starting in about an hour. I grinned mischievously to myself. If I had hands, they'd have been doing that evil finger-tapping thing right below my chin. Connor gave me a confused look. So? I put my ice cream down and jumped up from my rocking chair. Follow me. Connor followed me to the steakhouse, where Mom had finally finished up with the delivery and the truck had left. We snuck around to the back entrance and made our way to the kitchen, where cooks, busboys, and servers were all bustling around, getting ready for dinner. We stood secretly behind the giant commercial fridge. Connor and I watched in disgust as a busboy mixed a giant vat of coleslaw with his hands, his arms buried in it all the way to his biceps. He was wearing a tank top, and we saw he had coleslaw juice dripping from his armpit hair. Connor made a sort of laughing, gagging sound behind me, and I said, "Remind me to never eat the coleslaw here again." Connor giggled and barked. He should have little hair nits for his armpits. "What y'all doing in here?" We heard a voice from behind us. I whirled around to find Josephine, standing behind me, her arms crossed. Josephine had already introduced herself to me the day we moved to Stagecoach Pass. She had come to Arizona from Texas when she was only a teenager, and had been working at the park since forever. She was currently serving, hostessing, and doing all kinds of jobs for the steakhouse. Seemed to me like she ran the place. She was probably 80 years old, but she could still carry one of the giant trays that held a dozen bowls of cowboy beans. I thought quickly. Mom just told me to grab a couple steaks for dinner. Josephine glanced at me with a strange look she had given me the first time I met her. Sometimes when I was in the steakhouse, I'd catch her staring at me from across the restaurant. I was used to people staring at me, but this was somehow different. Well, she was just here. Josephine scratched at her cropped red hair, obviously dyed. No 80-year-old hair had that color. Why didn't she just take a couple then? I shrugged. She forgot. All right, grab them and then stay out of the way. Dinner's starting. She plowed through the swinging doors that led into the dining room, like she was on a serious mission. Connor opened the giant commercial fridge and grabbed 2 thin cuts of steak. Then we rummaged through counter drawers until we found some kitchen twine and a pair of scissors. We made our way upstairs to the apartment. I was relieved to find it empty. Mom must have gone off to deal with another job or crisis. It seemed the work never ended here. It was sloppy and haphazard, but Connor managed to dig a hole in each of the steaks, tie the twine through them, and then tie them around my t-shirt sleeves, going through the arm and neck holes. I loosely draped a cardigan over my shoulders, and we made our way downstairs and out into the street to watch the gunfight, where a small crowd was already forming. Don't be so nervous, I told Connor, as his ticking increased. It's just that there's a lot of people around, he said. Yeah, there were like 4 people standing by us. We had to wait only a minute before the cowboys came out and started yelling at each other. I tapped my foot while they went through their daily spiel. Finally, the moment came when the blue shirt cowboy, who also happened to be a server at the steakhouse, raised his gun and pointed it at the cowhide chaps cowboy, who also worked in the souvenir shop, and shouted, "When I'm done with you, there won't be anything left to snore." I made sure I was standing behind the cowhide chaps cowboy. Blue shirt cowboy always missed chaps cowboy with the first shot, but today he wouldn't miss completely. Teehee. At the moment blue shirt cowboy fired, I cried out in pain and shrugged the cardigan dramatically off my shoulders. Connor snickered beside me with his hand over his mouth. A couple of kids standing nearby screamed in terror, and their parents looked alarmed for about 1 second. All the time it took to assess the situation. Come on, it was clearly 2 steaks clumsily tied to my t-shirt, and not 2 shot-up arms. The cowboy stopped mid-fight and stared at me, probably not sure what to make of my steak arms, as the little kids cried and clung to their parents' legs, afraid their arms were next. The fight was all messed up now, and people started dispersing into the rest of the park. The cowboys glared at me. Connor draped the cardigan back over my shoulder, as I sheepishly smiled at them. "Sorry," I said. "I didn't mean to mess up your show." The next morning, cowboys went and complained to Dad about my shenanigans. He and Mom and I sat at the little kitchen table over bowls of cereal after they busted me. "The goal, Avon," Dad said, is to bring visitors into the park. He gestured dramatically toward himself. Not scare them out of the park. He threw his hands back out. I nodded in understanding. Won't happen again. He gave a satisfied nod and pushed his bowl away. He stood up and kissed the top of my head. Have a good day at school, sheeps. After Dad left, Mom looked at me and pursed her lips. She took one bite out of her cereal and chewed. It was a pretty good one. Yeah, it was, I said. And we finished breakfast together, communicating only through overly stern looks and repressed giggles. Chapter 12. Connor and I had been spending a lot of time together, so my parents asked me to invite him over for dinner after school. At lunchtime, I made my way to the bathroom, as usual, and washed my feet. I stared at the stall. I just couldn't do it that day. I felt too happy, and I was excited to see Connor and invite him over. I didn't need another bathroom stall lunch ruining my good mood, so I headed to the library to find Connor, once more taking the longer, quieter route around the office. I nearly tripped over that kid again as I rounded the corner. Gosh, I'm sorry, I said. Next time I would definitely remember to jump over him. That's okay, he said softly, never raising his head. I walked away, but stopped a moment to look back at him. He stared down at the sandwich and grapes lying next to him. I wondered why he would be eating out here on the hot sidewalk by himself. He looked about as forlorn and pitiful as must have looked cowering in the bathroom stall to eat my lunch. How could I just walk past him again, as though he were invisible? As though he were just some speed bump in my way. I went back and stood over him. He looked up at me, his hoagie sandwich midway to his mouth. Sweat trickled down his brown cheeks. Do you mind if I sit down? I asked. He looked around for a second, like he thought I must have been talking to the brick wall or lamppost nearby. When he looked back at me, he shrugged his shoulders. Okay. I dropped my bag on the ground, eased the strap off from around my neck, and sat down. He watched as I carefully opened my bag with my toes and pulled out my lunch. I spread a napkin out in front of me, then lifted out my Cheetos, apple slices, granola bar, and peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and arranged them on a napkin. What's your name? I asked, as I opened the bag of Cheetos with my toes. Instead of giving me his name, he said, That's cool. How do you do that? Lots of practice. I'm even. He continued to watch with intense interest as I took a Cheeto out and popped it into my mouth. Zion, he said. Like the Bible? No, like the Matrix. Oh, I said, munching on a Cheeto. What's that? His mouth dropped open. Seriously? It's one of my parents' favorite movies. They love sci-fi stuff. They said I looked like Morpheus when it came out, all bald and mysterious. He frowned. I'm not allowed to watch it, though, because it's rated R. Oh, I won't be able to either. Bummer. This Morpheus guy sounds interesting. Zion rolled his eyes. My parents are nuts. They also named my brother Lando, after Lando Calrissian, if you know who that is. Are you kidding? I'm definitely allowed to watch Star Wars. Zion smiled. My parents would be impressed. I footed him a Cheerio. He took it from me without flinching. Can I ask you something, Zion? He said, chewing on his Cheeto. Why do you eat out here on the sidewalk all by yourself? He slowly lifted his juice box to his lips and took a long swig. That's quiet out here. I tilted my head and raised an eyebrow at him. Is that the only reason? He stared at the ground but didn't answer me. It's okay, I said. I've been eating lunch in the bathroom. He looked up at me in surprise. I don't want the other kids to watch me eat. Everyone likes to watch a fat guy eat. They want to see how much food he can stuff into his mouth. But you're not that fat, I said, then cringed at my own words. I had meant it to sound nice, but it didn't sound so nice coming out. It's okay, I know I am. Well, I think you look great, I said. Zion handed me a grape. I took it from him with my foot and popped it into my mouth. So, why have you been eating in the bathroom? He asked. I swallowed my grape. I don't want the other kids to watch me eat either. Why not? Because they'll think I'm gross. No, they won't. Yes, they will. How do you know that? Zion said. I just do. Once, when I went to this children's museum with my parents, I sat down to play with Play-Doh at the table. Of course, I had to play with my feet, and everyone at the table stared at me. It It is interesting to see. Then this one kid cried out, "Gross, she's putting her feet on the Play-Doh." Kids are dumb, Zion said. Then his mom looked at my mom and said this, "Would you mind not letting your daughter put her feet in the Play-Doh?" Jerk, Zion muttered. "What did your mom say?" I smiled. She said she would make sure I used my butt cheeks instead. Zion laughed, a full big belly laugh. Oh, that's classic. I ate another Cheeto. Before that, I never realized people thought feet were gross. Anyway, that was right before starting kindergarten. You know what the first day of kindergarten is like for a 5-year-old with no arms? Zion grinned. Maybe even more difficult than for a chubby 5-year-old. Maybe. The kids asked me so many weird questions. I mimicked the little kid voices. Did someone chop your arms off? How do you finger paint with no fingers? How do you use scissors with no hands? How will you play Duck Duck Goose? Are your armpits ticklish? How do you wipe peanut butter off your face? Actually, what the kids really asked was, how do you wipe poop off your butt? But I wasn't about to tell Zion that. And no, I'm not telling you how either, so just stop wondering. It was exhausting, I said. I bet. They asked me stuff like, did you eat a skyscraper? And do you weigh more than my dad? I scowled. No wonder Zion was so insecure about his weight. I'm sorry, school really sucks sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah, so you can do everything everyone else can do with your feet? Mostly. I mean, things are always harder. Like the hokey pokey. When the song says, put your right hand in, I kind of just stand there like a mannequin and have nightmares about flag football. Try running around and grabbing someone's flag with your foot at the same time. Slightly difficult. Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be hard. The only sport I can really play well is soccer. Are you going to try out for the soccer team this spring? I don't know, I said. I played soccer back home in Kansas, but, I had a lot of friends and had always gone to the same school. I hardly know anyone here. You know me, Zion said. I smiled and handed Zion another Cheeto. Would you mind if I ate lunch out here with you again sometime? He beamed. Okay. Zion and I ate the rest of our lunch together that day, hidden away on the far side of the office where no one could watch us.